There are many education-based materials and interactive components that can be created using pieces of Gemini and Claude and others. But in this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at Gemini's Canvas feature as well as Claude's Artifact feature. So let's get started. So in order to unlock some of this power that Gemini has, we need to turn on an option under here, under Tools, that says Canvas. Now we're going to start really basic here, and we're going to say, tell me about the solar system. This is a lousy prompt, a really lousy prompt, but I want to just use it as a basis to show you a few things that we can do here. Now, why is it popping up this extra piece over here? It's doing that because we turned on where it says Canvas, and what that means to it is that we are going to develop something separate from the conversation that we're having. So we can see here, this almost looks like a Google Doc or just a word processing sheet. We can see where we've got all sorts of information here about the solar system. So we could add a little bit more. Add fun facts about each planet. It's also worth noting as it's updating here that you can turn off the fast and move up to thinking if you're needing it to really do some more deep thinking about what you're doing on the screen. Okay, so we can see we've got some fun facts in here. All right, we've got decent content. Now, I will also note that you could have opened Canvas and copied and pasted your own content into this. What is the advantage of working inside of Canvas? So we do have this content here. Couple different things I want to show you. Over here under this Create button, you can see that we have a variety of options. So we could say, create flashcards from this, and it will then come over here and create flashcards for us. So it's interpreting the context, it's going ahead and thinking about this, and it's going to make some changes. While it's doing that, I'm going to pause and then come back. Okay, here are our flashcards that popped up. We flip it over, we can see the answer right there. We can go on to the next one. That's interesting, but how do we give this to students? Well, right here, we can actually choose to share this component that we just built. Now, the flashcards were fine, but let's say we want to add something else or create something else. We can actually go up here all the way back to our overview that gives us our content again. Let's say we want to come up here and we want to now build a quiz, or let's do an infographic. Now it's going to take that content and it's going to build an infographic for us of this content. Again, you could have put your own content in here. We just went ahead and had it build content for us. So let me go ahead and pause and I will show you this when it's done. Okay, here is our infographic. We can scroll through and see each of these pieces, what it says about it, some graphs, content, and so on. This is pulling directly from the content that we had. I want to also note, all of our pieces are still here. Here's my infographic, here's my flashcards. I can go up a little further, and there's my content again. If I wanted to share this out, click the share button right there. Now, I want to also make note that we can ask it for something not on the list. So let's go back up to our content again. And let's say down here, we want to say, build me a presentation of this content. I could have put it here or I could have put it over here in the conversation. It doesn't really matter. They're both the same. What we're asking it to do is to build something off the cuff that isn't in its pre-created list of this content right here. So I'll pause, let it finish, and show you what it does. Okay, it looks like we've got 13 slides. I can flip through this, see the information that's on each of these slides. Again, pulling from that same document, or that same content rather. Okay, here is additional content. Now, if we wanted to share this out, we could also download it. I believe, yes, it downloads as a PDF. We could also export this to slides if we wanted to. Just another example. Let's go back up. One more example. Let's go back to our overview and let's ask it this time. Let's say, create an interactive study guide for students over this content. Again, I could have put it over here too. It doesn't really matter. I'll pause one more time and we'll see what it comes back with. Okay, so it said I'll create an interactive study guide. This will be all based on the provided report. I should mention we could also add in our own content up here down here if we wanted to. So it's telling us about it. Here's the learning dashboard, flashcards, knowledge quiz. Here's the learning piece here. Here are the flashcards, all built into this same study guide. And here's a quiz that they could take to see how well they know it. And again, you could share this out right here if you wanted to. Sky's the limit really on what you can do with this content once it's in here. Again, you could have put your own content in and asked it for those things as well. So in the next section, we are going to look at how to not start with content on Canvas, but rather just a prompt and what kinds of things can we build just with a prompt. So let's look at that now. What I want to show you now is if we use Canvas, we can actually give it a prompt to create us almost anything. So I have a couple of prompts here just to get us started with what we might be asking Gemini Canvas to create for us. So let me just pull one over here. Using Canvas, create an interactive timeline for grade level students. We will say this time, we'll say 10th grade students learning about World War I. All right, we're asking for 10 key elements, images, short descriptions, clickable elements that reveal deeper understanding. All right, let's see how we do. It is worth noting here that if you're not getting what you're looking for, you might want to switch from fast to thinking. These kind of higher level things we're asking for, I usually do switch to thinking. So I didn't in this case. We'll see how it does, but consider switching to thinking if you're not getting what you're looking for. All right, I'm going to pause and let this build, and I will come back. It is worth noting that we need to fact check and double check every amount of information that it gives us since we didn't upload our own content into this exercise. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is a timeline. One thing, when I click inside, I can see there's a deep dive and it's telling me what all it did. I can see that it's telling me about the deep dive, also an historical impact. I'm seeing this historical record here, which isn't actually including anything. So I'm going to actually ask it. I don't see content in the historical record section. All right, I'm asking it to change two different things to it. And again, this may have been the difference between fast and thinking, but I'm going to see how it changes this. And so again, this is a good reminder that what you get, you may have to make modifications to it. But certainly faster than coding it yourself, at least for me. I'm not an expert coder, and it will kind of allow you to iterate and make changes to it. So let me go ahead and let it make those changes and I will come back. Okay, so let's see how it changed. So now I'm going to open up the first one. Now we've got a historical context, and it told me I've added a primary source section for every event featuring real quotes from historical figures, telegrams, and official decrees. So we've got some historical context. We've got historical record here, a global impact, and now we do have images, a visual representation. And same here. We've got a historical context, we've got global impact and historical record and a visual representation. So it did definitely update and add the pieces in we wanted. We've got our knowledge check here where we can ask the questions and see how the students have answered them. I got that one right, and it went on to the next one. So just a quick glance at some of the things that you could do. Sky's the limit, really. If you're not sure what you can do, maybe you have a conversation with Gemini or a large language model and ask, what kinds of things could I create as an educator using Gemini Canvas? You could also create games inside of here. Let me show you one of those. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dump a prompt into here, and this is going to create something that should look like a Wheel of Fortune style game. Now, I know this prompt looks long, and it is long, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. I did not write this. I had a large language model help me to develop a prompt for a fun learning game for students in the framework of Wheel of Fortune. Actually, I think I said, give me 5 ideas, and I liked this one. So it's got a spot here for grade and topic. So let's try to build this one. I'm going to go ahead and fill in the blanks here. Okay, since we had stuck with the solar system, I went ahead and did that again. I said fourth grade solar system. Grade level could probably be adjusted if we needed to. I put in that it should be phrases or concepts from names of items in the solar system. Um, Obviously, a game like this would work best with vocabulary words or key names, things like that. You know what the Wheel of Fortune looks like. Okay, so I need to turn on Canvas here. I'm going to actually move this to thinking because we are doing something a bit more complicated. I'm going to go ahead and submit and let it start building. Again, it's going to open up that side panel and start coding this for us. So I'm going to pause and then come back to this. All right, it gave us some instructions over here on how to play, as well as it's telling us there are 15 distinct puzzles. So I'll say that I only have one player playing this today. You can see I've got my game board up here. I can choose my letters here, but the first thing I have to do is spin. The category is Galaxy. So I can go ahead and spin. And as always, you might see something that doesn't work quite right. You might want to then make a change, or you might want to have them not buy a vowel, but actually just have it chosen as something that they can pick. So I'll go ahead and not buy a vowel. I'll go ahead and choose R. And nope, sorry, no R. So I'm going to spin again. All right, so I'll pick an S. Nope, no S. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for a minute, and then I'll come back and show you the resolution. Okay, I think I know what this is. I've gone a couple of rounds here. I'm going to spin again, just so that I can kind of show you one last thing here. If you wanted to not include the bankrupt, you could, of course, tell them that. I'll see if there's a Y. All right, so I do have two Ys. I'm going to go ahead and spin, and then I think I'll try to solve it. So now I'll try to solve the puzzle. All right, and I got it right. Now, one thing worth noting here too, when you build these, you could also give it context by adding files and say, use these words. This is what we're working on in class. So those are definitely possible. Okay, so let me just remind you to share any of these out. Again, make sure everything is working the way that you would want it to work before you do that. So we would share, choose to share, and then the link would be copied. The last thing I want to mention is that we have talked a lot about how this can work inside a Gemini canvas. I just want to mention that Claude has an area called artifacts that does a lot of the same kinds of things. In order to use artifacts, you would choose to do a new artifact. It's giving us a bunch of categories here. Let's say I was going to create a game. It's going to try to actually walk me through a little almost wizard on having me work through what kind of game. And that might be helpful for you if you are building something from scratch. You can also, I can choose to X out of this, and I can put in my own prompt right here, just like we did in Gemini. I want to pull up one that I created just so that you can see how it looks in Claude. Okay, in this example, you can see that I had asked it to build a survivor-inspired strategy game. Again, a prompt that an LLM created for me. I filled in the blanks for 5th grade Civil War, and it, just like in Gemini, Canvas, it creates a separate window where it's building it. These, again, in Claude are called artifacts. So once again, you could go back and forth and make changes to things. This was too simple. Create a hint button here. The directions aren't correct or clear. Whatever it is you want to go back and forth with. Then when it is the way that you want it, and of course you can enter and play the game and do all the things that you would do. Like we were practicing before. And then when you feel like it is in a spot where you are ready to share it, in Claude, it's called publishing. So we're going to come up here to the right. We're going to click publish. Then it is going to allow me to publish and copy the link. There is the link that you would share out with folks. Now, can I get back to this at some point, make changes, do other things? Absolutely, yes. Over here on the left in Claude, we've got our conversations. So the conversation I had to create the game is sitting right here. And all of our artifacts are sitting right here under artifacts, your artifacts. And here's the one that we just did right there. So you can always come back to these and play them again, or go to the chats and make more changes to them. Which is better, Canvas or artifacts? I think it depends on what you're doing. I have used both. There are things I like about Claude, things I like about Gemini's Canvas. I think it depends on what you're comfortable with, what you want to use, and frankly, what you can do on the free accounts or whatever account tier you have with both of those tools. So I just wanted you to see how to use both of those, up to you to decide how you use them, and how you can create materials for your students.